Well, hello. My name is Marty and welcome to the MySaw workshop. It's good to have you in the shop with me today. Today we're going to be working on a shop project for a video light. Yep, I got all these lights around me. This is one of the lights I built actually back in January. Took a lot of video of the process of building it, and it's just time for it to be made into a video. The real driving factor here was I wanted to learn SketchUp. One of the things I want to do with my channel is to be able to offer plans for different shop projects that I've worked on, and offer a plan, written plan, and then offer a SketchUp file to go with it. So all of this to that end, I've actually edited this video about 4 times, and actually since January to now, my editing techniques have become, I think, a whole lot better and a whole lot tighter. So this is a little bit of a long video, but it is a build video, so it takes a little bit of time to get through it. I really would like for your comments on this and to give me some feedback on what you think about it. So let's get started with that. We start by milling all of the basic pieces of the project together, going through some quarter-inch material here. These are the inside reflectors. Then we're starting on our 3/4 inch plywood, cutting the basic shapes here. These are the ends that we're actually cutting right here. Then we're cutting the backboard, cross-cutting. This is the white board I got from Home Depot. It becomes the reflectors and the inside reflectors and the back reflector. This is a piece of 1/4 inch pine that we're going to use for the spacers in between the back reflector and the actual back of the light, the holes, the sockets in there, and I'm ripping this down to size. Our next step is to put the angle on the ends. I'm doing this using a protractor and an angle finder there, angle gauge. Extending my line. Clamping these together so they can be cut at the same time on the taper jig on the table saw. And I'm marking the ends of the angles there with the woodpecker saddle square. Next I'm working on the 3/4 inch material that's going to become the inside reflectors, cutting them to the tapered size, or marking them for the cut for the tapered size. Now these are just 1/4 inch, so I'm going to glue them together and then just cut these freehand on the bandsaw a little bit later on, put some clamps on it, set it aside. Now we're beginning to assemble the what I call the back reflector and the back together. I'm marking the center line here, and then finding the center of the 1.5 inch holes that will be drilled, marking that so I can actually see it. And then I'm actually marking some lines here for the 8 screws that'll be put in that connect the back reflector through the spacers eventually to the back. I'm going to put some 1/8 inch pilot holes in here, in all of them. So we've got our 8 holes cut there, and we can center this up is what I'm doing. On the plans that you have for this project, there's some actual measurements here, and I got a little bit more precise. This one I kind of built as I went. So the measurements aren't exact, but they work. And I got the measurement for the width there, and I'm centering the backboard up on that using my square there. We're going to clamp this down, and I'm going to put 4 shorts, number 6 screws in, just right in the middle there. What I'm going to do, you'll see here in a second, is to drill the holes all the way through the back reflector and the back at the same time. I'm lining up on that hole, and the trick I do here is I clamp my drill press down and hold it, and then move the back fence in. So we're just drilling these all the way through on each one of them. We'll take this apart now. We're actually ready to put it together. Excuse me, not ready to put together. I forgot this on the first one too. We're going to put some pocket holes in this so we can actually attach the ends to the back using Kreg pocket holes. There's 3 across each end there. Standard pocket hole joinery. I've used that jig for about 10 years. Next, we're taking this over to the table saw with my utility taper jig that I have for my saw. There's a video about that, so we can clamp odd things and wide things to it. And it seats against the back board there and then gets clamped down front and back. Really nice, works really nice. And there we have it. Getting ready for a 1/4 inch deep dado cut here. I use these woodpecker setup blocks all the time for stuff like this. It's just really easy for me to do it this way, and I guess everybody has a way they set depths and narrow widths, but we're running these end pieces through on the first cut. And we're going to reset the fence a little 1/16 inch wider there. So we're going to get 3/16 on these. You can see it fits there on the whiteboard. We're going to take these back through and expand that cut from an 1/8 inch to 3/16 of an inch. There we go. Now we got to do the same thing on the back. This is the slot on the back. The side, the big reflector boards seat into. So we're just setting that up with the setup blocks again, and we'll make a couple of passes. We're resetting the width here to add another 1/8 inch to the size of that dado, so the dado is going to be about 1/4 inch is what it should be. Get those cut. Now here is essential to look at this. I messed this up, so I had to make those dados a little wider on the bottom there. In the plan that you have, I think I've got it exact, so they will meet, but you need to check this. Now we're going to go over to the bandsaw and cut that 1/4 inch material real quickly on the bandsaw. And really just following the lines. This line's not critical. It's not going to butt up against anything. It just sits inside the cavity there to be the side reflectors. Now we've got those pieces cut. We can, I'm lining up the spacers there. What I'm doing is getting a center line so I can see where to center those up. Again, on the plan you have, this is a lot more precise, and I've got the measurements down exact. Put some glue, some little 18 gauge nails in it. Now we're ready to put this together with the actual light sockets. These are utility light sockets. And the important thing here is that white piece of reflector board has to catch these light sockets, and the depth of the 1/4 inch depth of those spacers is the trick to making that work. So you need to test this on whatever sockets you purchase. So we're just putting in 8 screws here through the spacers on the back, and that squeezes those light sockets and holds them tight so they won't turn. I'm just checking these to make sure they're tight. Then I'm standing up the ends there on the spacer boards I have underneath it, and adding my clamps. Clamping is always the secret to Kreg pocket holes. Testing to make sure the sides go in. This kind of gives it some rigidity. And then we're going to turn it over and put the Kreg pocket hole screws in there on each end. Take the clamps off. This is the rail for the inside spacers. I actually created this just using a hand plane and that guideline on top of there. You can see me now that I'm lining up these rails to screw them in. And basically the lineup is just using that inside spacer as the mark to where that goes. It's not critical if that angle's perfect on there, because this is just going to screw in against them. Put a couple of screws in each one of these. Drilling pilot holes for the screws. using number 8 1.5 inch screws here. This has got to go through that 3/4 inch board, through the backer board and into the spacer board underneath it. So it needs some length on it there. I'm using this now to see where to put the upper rail. Also, I have found out that these are a little bit too wide, so I've just made some marks on it, and I'll go back and trim those later. Repeating the same thing on the other end here. I used some different clamps here just because I had them, and it seemed like that rail was moving around when I was screwing it in. So we're fixing those with the 1.5 inch screws. And now I've got a little clamp there on top just to hold that side reflector in, so I can stick the upper rail underneath it and hold it with my hand while I mark the position across the end there with it. I'm doing the same thing on the other end now. You see I'm holding that there in place, marking it. I've got to cut these off a little bit too. And I'm going to drill 3 pilot holes in that one. In each of those longer rails. In your plans, I refer to these as the short rails and the long rails, and show you some general positioning in the view of the plan there that I have in the written plans. So these are countersunk. They're going to get a countersunk head on them. And I'm presetting them in there. So we're just going to clamp this in here and hold it tight while I can screw it in. Then line it back up again. So there you can see how they're going to fit in there real nicely. I'm going to mark holes in these. I slide it to the edge there so I can see the rail underneath it, so I can mark the holes. Then I just use a straight edge and get that metal hole marked in there. Drilling the holes here, there's going to be drilled in both of those. I'm just extending this line here where I've got to go fix these ends. Take it back over the bandsaw and just kind of trim them up real quick here. These are the plugs that I found. They're going to be plugged in one time in their lifetime, so we don't need anything great here. I'm stripping the wires down here, and one thing I do when I strip these wires down, I strip off a lot of insulation. I'm cutting off the ground wire here because we just don't need it. We've just got black and white connections. And notice the length of how much I strip off on these wires. That's a trick I've used for ages, because we're going to have to wrap this around this screw, and with that longer piece of wire there, it's just much easier to get it wrapped around the screw. You can just unscrew that like I'm doing there, and then pull it around with your fingers. And then it's easier to cut off what you have left over, and it doesn't fly everywhere. So that's just a little electrical stuff there. These plugs went together pretty well. Now on the light side, we're going to connect whites to whites and put a wire nut on there. And then we're going to connect blacks to blacks and put a wire nut on there. This is a cable loop fastener for cable TV. I got a bunch of. And it just works real well to hold this wire down inside the back there. So I built a little box out of 3/4 inch pine and stapled it together. .18 gauge nails. And we've got a piece of, check the fit there. The wire comes out the end fine. Got a piece of scrap 1/4 inch plywood I'm going to use for the backing on it. And I'm just going to cut this kind of rough to shape. So I'm just making some quick marks there. Cut it, and then I'm going to glue this onto the back and put some 18 gauge nails in it real quick. Yep, still fits. Took it over to the belt sander, pretty it up, sand off the edges of it real quick and make it look nice, and going to bevel the corners there also. Hitting it with a bevel there real quick. So this is going to be mounted at the back with some 2.5 inch number 8 screws, flathead screws. So I'm just drilling a pilot hole all the way through there with my drill press. And we're going to countersink these flathead screws. We got the wiring covered up on the back. Things are looking pretty good here. I'm going to use another one of those little cable connectors to attach the wire. So I've got a pigtail out. Using number 6 by 5/8 here. We're going to attach the ends. It's just a real simple process, so we'll get both ends attached. So we're going to slide in the reflector boards on either side. And we're going to hit that with a nail, with the 18 gauge nails, to tie that into the, and put it in there permanently. And oops, that just got a nail in my tummy. Not bad. It turned out to be okay. Just another shirt with a hole in it. So we're going to just finish up with that angle. You need to be careful with that angle and the length of your 18 gauge nails there. And clip off the nails that came out. Seems to be quite a few of them. On my unit, I used 1/4 inch plywood here instead of the whiteboard, so I had to paint these with a couple of coats of paint. And that's how it looks when you get through. Turned out pretty good, and that's the back of it. It's ready to install. So there we go. We've got it built. We've got it installed. And these lights have proved to be very valuable and given me some really good lighting on my video work in the shop. I want to thank Jay Bates for all the SketchUp work he has published and the many videos he has made on this. Watching other people's video and watching other people use SketchUp, I learn something every time, and sometimes it's not exactly what I think I'm going to be learning, but there's always some hint or some technique they use that can add to your ability to use the SketchUp program. There is a downloadable plan for this project and a downloadable SketchUp file. Please go back to the link for the blog where all the information and all the materials used are also documented in there. I do appreciate you watching today, and would like you to, subscribe. I want to thank my 304 subscribers. I keep getting one or so a week. It feels real good that people are finding my channel and liking the work that they see enough to subscribe to the channel. So until next time, thanks for watching. Really do appreciate it. Thanks.